everyone, Clay Scroggins here. Now more than ever, we all need a daily dose of encouragement and inspiration, and we here at Buckhead Church are here to help get you through this unprecedented season in our city and to offer some practical ways that we can be for Atlanta over the coming weeks and months. The conversation you're going to hear today is one that I got to have with a good friend of mine named Jon Acuff. I first met Jon Acuff at a group link event, which is an event we do to help people get connected into groups at North Point Community Church in Alpharetta. Jon has since gone on to write 6 books, and he is a regular speaker, communicator at big businesses, sports teams and associations, as well as large corporate events. But he really is best known for just being an absolute riot of a human. He should be a stand-up comedian and offers some really relevant and helpful tips on how to work from home and how to take that do-over in life that so many of us need in so many different areas. So I hope this is helpful, and I hope it's maybe even hopeful for you. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode, and share this conversation on social media. Here's my conversation with Jon Acuff.
Well, let's jump in. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for having this conversation. Here's how this happened. Well, first of all, you used to go to our church, which is awesome. You live in Nashville now. You're an author, 5 books. 5 books?
6 books.
6?
6 books.
When's the next one? You got one on the way? Are you pregnant?
I got one coming next April. And I wish it was out now because the topic is overthinking. And it's really about how to learn how to think and how to kind of take control of your thoughts. And so it's one of those books that I feel a lot calmer during this situation because I just spent 2 years with a PhD learning how to think. And so It'll be out next spring, and I'm really excited about it.
Well, we're going to talk in this conversation about do-over. But before we even get into that, I saw a tweet. What made me think of you, I mean, I think of you a lot, but what made me think of you in this topic is you had a tweet about getting up and taking a shower when you're working from home. You've been working from home for 7 years, you said. Can you unpack that? What's your advice on those of us who are trying to work from home?
Yeah, so it's a big transition, and it's complicated by the fact that everything is transitioning right now. But I feel like I've learned a number of things in the last 7 years. I was in an office for 15 years, worked in corporate America for big teams like Home Depot and small teams like small ad agencies that were 20 people. So I was an office guy, and then suddenly I wasn't an office guy. And what's funny is that everyone in America is like, it's the dream, like to work from home in your pajamas, as if your pants is what's been holding you back. Like, I would be so productive if it wasn't for these pants. Like
these khakis are so, that's right.
Khakis.
So limiting.
These khakis are the one thing holding me back. But what I learned is that things like working from home in your pajamas is a myth. And it actually, like, the joke I always do is like by day 3, flannel feels like failure. Like you can't get great stuff done in a robe. Like a robe is designed to be like shut down, turn your brain off, think about tea. And so a trick that I started to do was I would get up every morning, I would take a shower, I would get dressed. I'm not putting on a tux. Like sometimes people are like, I don't need to get dressed. I'm not saying you put on tails with a top hat. Like you're not Mr. Peanut. But I think there's something really important about going, I have this routine. There's been books written about, there was a book by a Navy SEAL called Make Your Bed. And the whole concept was doing the one little thing, set something in motion. And so a really easy work from home tip is get dressed, get showered. Shoes are important. Like putting on a pair of shoes is important to go, okay, I'm in motion. There's all these subtle little things that remind your brain and your body, okay, even though I'm in somewhere that I associated with being off work, I now have to be on work. So I want to use as many little tricks to turn that part of me on to go, now I have to do something productive.
Well, have you been able to establish the same kind of productivity that you had in an office?
So I would say the second tip, if you said, okay, let's do a list of tips. The second tip is you won't have the same level of productivity. Like that's the other myth. People by day 4, day 5 get so frustrated because they go, I used to get these things done and now I'm not. and they completely don't give themselves permission to admit it's very different. Like you shouldn't have the same exact productivity. You should have a new level of productivity. So I think one of the best things you can do is to say, new situation, new challenges, new opportunities. What are my new goals? How do I adjust that? If you hold yourself to the exact standard of productivity that you had when you were by yourself in an office from 8 to 5, you're going to fail every single day. So you have to go, okay, it doesn't mean I'm less productive. It means I'm differently productive. So, okay, I don't have a commute anymore. I'm getting back some of that time. Okay, well, what do I do with that? Or now I have kids coming in. Like the absurdity of going, it's weird that I don't get the same amount done. I also have 2 toddlers under the age of 4, but it's weird that, you know what you didn't have in your office? 2 toddlers under the age of 4. So like, why would you hold yourself to that standard? That's insane. Yeah. If you were in an office and somebody is like, hey, I'm going to let these toddlers run around during our meeting, I'm going to just say, like, I hope it improves our productivity. You would go, but dude, it's not gonna, because like toddlers never improve productivity. Like that's not what they do. No. And so I think you have to come up with new definitions of what your goals are for that space.
That's great. You have one more? I feel like you might have one more tip.
I have like 50 more. I mean, another thing to do is create a dedicated workspace to have, okay, this is where I work. Because what happens is, if you don't do that, you'll work from everywhere. See, we have this fantasy of I can work anywhere, which sounds like a benefit, but that mutates into work everywhere. And so there's a lot of people that are like, I get to work by the pool. You just brought a meeting to the pool. Like nobody sees that side. Like if a boss said to you, I'm going to call you every time you're by a pool, you'd be like, I have the worst boss ever. But we bought into this myth of like, look, here's today's office. And you're like, you just brought the office to the beach? Ugh. Like, let the beach be the beach. So I think in your house, you have to go, this is the space I work in, or you'll work in every space, and the day will never end. So it's great that you can sit on a couch and do a little bit of work. I get that. But I think it's much easier if you say, okay, this corner of this room, it doesn't have to be an office. Like, let's not pretend everyone has like a dedicated office space.
Right. Because like we just have this extra room in our house that is now going to be an office. Most people don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
So I love your
and so I
corner.
think, yeah, you find a corner and go, okay, this corner of my bedroom, I'm going to put a little table, a little chair. I mean, it's kind of like I write books, so people sometimes are like, do you have a writer's cabin? That's the fantasy. Like you're off somewhere in the Pacific Northwest with like a beard and a dog and a falcon. And like, that's not how it works. Like my writer's cabin most days is like a terminal in the Atlanta airport. Or it's, a hotel room in the Hampton Inn. It's not romantic. It's not glorious. So I'm not saying you need an amazing workspace. I'm just saying you need to carve out a little space at your house where you go, this part of the garage is where I'm going to do some work. You want it to be as professional as you can because you don't want it to be in the middle of the kitchen, because then what happens is you tell your kids, if you have any, hey, by the way, I own the kitchen now. And they're like, well, we like eating and stuff.
Right. We'd like to use the kitchen. Jon, that's fantastic. I feel like we could talk for a long time about work tips, productivity tips. Let's talk about transitions. I think that's one of the big challenges that this new season has given us. Is it's just a big transition. I wouldn't say we had life under control before, but we certainly it felt like there were more certainties, and now all of a sudden it feels like everything's uncertain. It feels like this transition has just upended everything, kind of dislodged everything. What did you learn going through the process of writing Do-Over?
Well, so yeah, it's crazy. I didn't even really think about it. I started to see people this week read copies of Do-Over. So a couple years ago, I wrote a book about how do you handle job transitions, good ones, bad ones, expected ones, unexpected ones. And it was really practical, tons of steps, tons of tools. And then I started to see people post that. And I remembered, oh, that's right. I mean, even like the NFL teaches it to players, because you talk about a transition, the average player's in the league for 3 years. So they teach Do-Over at the Players Association. So I learned kind of a couple big things. One is that there's really only 2 types of transitions, 2 kind of main types. There's voluntary and there's involuntary. If you think about a vertical line, at the top is voluntary. Those are transitions you make, transitions you cause. You go work at a new job, you ask somebody new out, like you make it. The bottom of the vertical line are involuntary transitions, transitions that happen to you, things that are outside of your control. And now the problem is that that's too simple. Not every voluntary is good. Not every involuntary is bad. We've all had good involuntary things happen to us, surprises. So you add a horizontal line to that one, and that one goes from negative to positive. And when you look at that, you see this kind of simple chart. I'll go ahead and draw it because let's be visual. This is video. There's really two types of transition you're going to go through in life. There's voluntary and there's involuntary. Whenever I talk to somebody, I love to make it as simple as possible. So I'm just going to draw a line. So there's a voluntary transition and there's an involuntary transition. Voluntary are changes you make. Involuntary are changes that happen to you.
Voluntary,
but that's not,
I took a big promotion. Involuntary, I got laid off.
Exactly. So a big promotion would be, okay, I changed something I applied for a job. I was excited about it. Another one would be my industry disappeared. We're talking about involuntary right now. But the problem is not every voluntary is good. Not every involuntary is bad. So you have to add another line to that. And that one goes from negative to positive. And when you see that, you see there's these 4 moments you're going to experience in every life, in every career, in every relationship. I mean, take marriage, for instance. You and your spouse realize things are good, but they could be better. So you go to a voluntary counseling session and you work on your marriage and you make voluntary changes. Involuntary is you ignore everything. You use the Christian F word, which is fine. And then one day somebody walks out of the house and you feel like you never had a clue. Now, again, not every voluntary is good, though. We've all voluntarily made mistakes. We've all had people voluntarily date idiots longer than they should have. We've had good involuntary things happen as well. There's people watching this right now that are working a job they didn't expect to work at because a year ago, somebody on Facebook said, hey, we worked together 5 years ago and I thought of you for this position. And they experienced a good involuntary. So you have to add another line that goes from negative over to positive. And when you do that, you see there's these 4 change moments people go through. The first one up here, a voluntary negative moment, is a ceiling. So when people get stuck, you voluntarily go towards something negative. That's 70% of Americans who hate their jobs and don't do anything about it. They got stuck. Down here, an involuntary negative moment is what's called a bump, where life catches you off guard. There's a lot of people in the middle of that right now. Nobody planned a pandemic. Nobody in Nashville planned to have a tornado that hurt so many businesses. This can be something small. It could be a member of your team leaves. It's crazy how one member of a team can change the whole culture. And they get another job, and all of a sudden you go through a bump moment. Positive side of things, a voluntary positive moment is a jump. You get a mentor, you read a new book, you watch a podcast, you go to a new job. This one down here, an involuntary positive moment, is what's just called an opportunity, where a surprise catches you off guard. Now, what's interesting is you can't avoid the negative ones. It'd be great if you and I could teach people, hey, here's how to never have bumps. Here's how to never get stuck. You're going to. Yeah. Industries change. Pandemics come. So the key is to figure out how do you invest in 4 things to make sure you get through those. And the 4 things are relationships, skills, character, and hustle. Those are what I call a career savings account. And the one you need the most when you go through a bump moment is your relationships. If you want to find out who your friends are, go through a negative, unexpected moment. And what you learn is that sometimes the people you thought would show up first disappear. But then people you didn't even know knew you existed show up out of nowhere to link arms with you and say, we're going to get through this. So during this transition, the one that a lot of people are in, I'm encouraging them, okay, what are the relationships I need to ask for help from? Who are the people I need to reach out to? And not pretend I've got it all together, because nobody has it all together right now. Where are the relationships that I need to trust? Where do I need to go up to show up in somebody's life? And then you start to go, okay, well, what are the skills I might need to add? I had my industry kind of shaken up. What are the skills I've been putting off? Because it's really easy in times of success to not develop new skills. And then all of a sudden, when things get shaken up a little bit, you feel like, okay, I need to go out and add some more skills to the mix. And you go, okay, what are the, where's my character? Do I need to lean into my generosity, to my honesty? Are there character things I need to strengthen up? And then my hustle. What are the things that I didn't have to do last week? 2 weeks ago, a month ago, I didn't have to do these things. Now I have to do them. Now I have to be, I have to take responsibility for the things I can take responsibility for, even in the middle of chaos. Because there's always things you can say, we talked about work from home. You get to choose to get up on time. You get to choose to take a shower. You get to choose to set up a workspace. You can't blame other people for that. That's a choice that you get to make. Where can I take some responsibility?
All right, let me just wrap it up with this one final question. So, Jon, I love those 4 things, that it's all about relationships, skills, character, and hustle. And if you apply those, pay attention to those, you can make even the involuntary life change transition, you can make it a positive thing.
Right.
So any final thoughts as it relates to what people are going through right now? People working from home, people's industries being challenged. There's people that work for restaurants that are now worried, are people ever going to go back to eat again? I think the people I worry most about are the people that work at Sweet Tomato or one of those kind of places, because I don't know that we're ever going to do buffets again. What do you have to say? What's any final thoughts about what people are dealing with right now?
Well, I think one of the things is that be careful you don't isolate. And that's a crazy thing to say, as we're supposed to self-distance.
Right.
But I think it's really, fear is an isolating thing. And fear always tells you you're the only one. No one else feels this way right now. You shouldn't share this. You'll look silly. It'll be embarrassing. Then shame comes in. And so I think I would encourage people not to self-isolate, to say, okay, I can self-distance without self-isolating. I still need to reach out to somebody and go, hey, here's a fear I have. Like, even if I know it's irrational, I just need to say it out loud so that a friend can say, no, like, this isn't forever. That's the other thing. Fear tells you that this is forever.
That's right.
It tells you that this is permanent versus going, okay, so a year from now, where do I want to be? Like, do that as an exercise. If you said, okay, in the midst of all this, it's a year from now, I don't know how I'm going to get there, because I really don't. And here's the other thing I'd say is that 6 months ago, you didn't expect this moment. So don't hold yourself accountable for knowing what 6 months from now will look like. You didn't know this one was coming. So take the pressure off yourself that, okay, I have to figure out what 6 months exactly will look like. And if I don't make the right steps or the right decisions or the right moves, I'm not going to get there. And so I think that's part of it. And then asking for help. And then also giving yourself tons of grace to feel the feeling. Like, you have a couple options when fear comes in. You can deny it and say, like, I'm not afraid, I'm going to put on a brave face. You can sit in it forever and just let it kind of control you. Or you can say, I feel it, I fully process it, I share it with other people, and then I have to choose hope. Like, not as I hope that hope shows up, that I choose it. And some days, like, you're going to have to make that choice 1,000 times a day. Some days maybe only 10, but in this season, you might have to choose it over and over and over again. And you'll feel like, why doesn't it stick? Well, here's the thing, like, fear never takes work. Hope takes work. Like, fear comes on its own accord, stays as long as you'll let it, sets up shop. Like, you don't have to water a weed. Like, where hope, you have to go, like, hope, you got to roll up the sleeves and be like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to work on this. And so, like, for me, one of the things that I've started to help people with, like, if they want to check into Do-Over, they can text. I've got a number. I'll give it to you. It's 44222. So 44222. And if you text Do-Over, no spaces, DOOVER, I'll send you the first chapter. And it's just a PDF, and it's just the first chapter. Or if you go to my website, acuff.me/do-over. So DOOVER, acuff.me. I'll send you the first chapter. So even little things where you go, okay, I can't reinvent my career today. And, like, nobody knows what next week's going to look like. But I can at least go, okay, I'm going to read a little. I'm going to watch a podcast. I'm going to talk to a friend. Do those little things. Don't put yourself under the pressure of, I've got to fix this today. Because, again, I think that's impossible. And so, like, when you can, it won't always be easy. Do the dream. Say, a year from now, where do I want to be? Like, what does it look like? Because this isn't forever. Number 2, reach out to friends. Don't isolate. You can self-distance without self-isolating. And number 3, engage with content that encourages you. That's the other thing I'd say is there's a fine line between informed and obsessed. Like, fear never tells you that's enough news, that's enough media, that's enough Twitter. Like, fear always goes more. And when you get to a place where you're full up and it's discouraging and you feel heavy. And so if you get to that place, throw the white flag. There's no shame at 8 a.m. in the morning going, I can't do Twitter today. Like, I can't do, like, there's not. And also you go, well, I need to be informed. Really, what's happening in Malaysia do for your Tuesday?
Hey, John, this is fantastic. Thank you. I want to connect people. Big message too is that you can choose hope when you're wearing your work pants, not in your flannels. Back to where we started.
Yep.
Hey, give us that number one more time so we can point people to go over. Give us the number one more time.
Yeah. So it's 44222.
All right.
So 44222.
Do over.
And you text do over, one word, no spaces. So DOOOVER. Or if it's easier for you, because I know that you've got international folks, acuff.me/do-over. You can get it either way. I want to make it as easy as possible. And yeah, I think, I'd say it's not forever, and reach out to people. Self-distance, don't self-isolate.
Love it. Jon Acuff, thanks so much. Thanks for joining us. This has been super helpful, and you got oodles and oodles of content. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Clay.